Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope everybody's doing okay. Yeah, this is crazy. So apparently the prosecutors were waiting for a live stream. I'm guessing it's going to be a press conference, maybe. But we're waiting for a press conference. I think it's a press conference. I don't know. CBS is going to go live. And we're going to stream that. And it's scheduled to start any minute. But apparently the headline is Parkland prosecutors seek probe after reported threat to juror in sentencing trial. So I guess what they're going to do is just seek out a thorough investigation into that. And I really hope that, what I don't want to happen, I don't really understand how the law works totally. I don't know if that would cause a mistrial. I don't know how that works. But I'm thinking that if there's a mistrial, that they're going to have to do it all over again. And I don't want these parents to have to go through this, these families to have to go through this all over again. That would be terrible. Okay, so the verdict is final. Yeah, but if a juror was threatened, that's no way. That can't be final. If a juror was influenced through a threat, there's no way that could just be final. I just don't see that being a thing. No way. And it's so ironic. Like, what do you like? So some bleeding heart that's anti-death penalty is going to threaten someone with violence if they don't. You know what I mean? Like, how's that even a thing? That's insane to me. No, that's not double jeopardy. That's not double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is different. Double jeopardy is like if someone is found innocent, and then there's new evidence after the fact, then they can't put that person on trial again. This is different. This was a trial that was tampered with. The jury was tampered with. This is different. So, I'm just speaking theory here. Okay, so you're saying that it's double jeopardy applies to death penalty, but I don't know about that. Well, yeah, he made a plea deal. He didn't make a plea deal. He just pled guilty. There was no plea deal. He was on trial to decide whether or not he was on trial to the trial was to decide whether or not he gets life in prison or the death penalty. I just don't see how tampering with a jury would not be. That's what I'm saying. Okay, see, inquiring minds want to know. That's what I'm thinking in theory, that the judge can declare a mistrial. And in a mistrial, correct me if I'm wrong, a mistrial means that they have to try it all over again. But the judge is going to be the one to make the decision. Right. A new panel has to be selected. That means a whole trial has to take place all over again if that's the case. That means that there's a whole new jury that has to hear all of that evidence all over again. We're talking weeks and weeks of evidence. And that's not, God, man, that's so terrible for that family. God, how much do they have to suffer? Like, how much do these families have to suffer? This is awful. What's this right here? I don't know anything about. I haven't been following the Daryl Brooks trial. And I guess wherever that was, the Christmas parade. Oh, that's that asshole that drove into those people, killed 6 people. And there's no death penalty there, so I mean, he faces life. But I want to get back to this because I want to know what's going on. I mean, I maybe I could start covering it, Joe Nathan. Maybe. I don't know. I have not been keeping up with it. That makes no sense, Tom Riddle. All due respect, I mean, no, it's not. It's if the jury was tampered with at all. It makes no difference what they were tampered with for. It's if the jury was tampered with at all. I mean, that right there, any side can argue. Like right now, it's the prosecution that's asking for a probe into what happened. Well, Mr. Smith, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you. I'm just saying, um, like hypothetically speaking, none of us here are attorneys, so none of us really know. We're just kind of brainstorming here, but nobody's jumping to any conclusions. Right, drunk Lauren. There would have to be. There would have to be. Um, there would have to be an entire investigation just into the jury tampering. Like, but that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Like, either a jury lied to get on that, either a juror lied to get on the jury panel, or someone got to one juror in order to facilitate a hung jury, basically. All right, here's your first comment. If there is evidence of jury tampering, the defense will put in an appeal. Then the appeal court will decide if any misconduct happened. If so, it will go back to trial. I mean, but why would the defense appeal? I'm just honestly asking questions. I'm not, I don't know any better than anyone else. But why would the defense ask for an appeal? I mean, they came out winning. You know what I mean? They got the result that they were looking for, which was to, right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's the defense. I mean, the whole point is to. I mean, this wasn't a trial to determine his guilt. His guilt was already determined because he pled guilty. The difference is in Florida has capital punishment. So, but the law in Florida is a judge doesn't just pass that death sentence out. A judge has to pass this sentence out based on a jury trial to determine whether or not that person should get the death penalty or life imprisonment. One of those two is happening. You know what I mean? I mean, this guy killed 17 people, and he did it cold-blooded, malicious, and he planned it. It was absolutely premeditated. So his guilt is already determined. It's just a question of, does he deserve to die for it, or does he deserve to spend the rest of his life in prison? And the families believe that the justice system failed because if you live in a city, or if you live in a state where there is capital punishment, if there's any case that merits capital punishment, it's this case. I mean, how cold-blooded do you have to get? How cold-blooded do you have to get? You know what I mean? Like, how cold-blooded more does it get? You know, like, that's this dude, like, there was just mounds of evidence of this guy just being full of hatred, racist, misogynistic, everything. And all of the things that he was, I mean, this guy basically documented, he did what Letitia Stock was doing, which was like, and by the way, we got a date on that. I don't know the exact date, but March 2023 is when Letitia's trial jury, her jury trial starts. And I will be covering that. I have been looking forward to that for a very long time. So Letitia Stock's trial is coming up. But she sat there and used Google as a diary. You know what I mean? Like, that's what this dude did. He would type into his search engine things that he hated about life and acted like Google was his buddy, you know? And so, like, and all of that shit could be pulled up and tracked. All of it. The stock trial can be. The stock trial can be. And I'm hoping that it is. It's a, to my understanding, federal cases are the ones that don't get televised. But local cases can. So, or a state case, I should say. So, I mean, she's being tried by the state of Colorado. And that's it. So hopefully that's going to be televised. I mean, Chris Watts' sentencing was televised, and that was in Colorado. So right, Drunk Lauren, that's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what this is, just the sentencing stage. This whole trial was the sentencing. That's all this was. He had already pled guilty. His guilt was already determined. These things always take forever. I guess it's a presser. Like, I'm just going to share the screen anyway, because I don't want to miss anything. See, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's going to be a retrial. See, there you go. Google's a hell of a thing. Thank you, Grandmaster Sid Sophos, retrial. Acquitted person can be retried for the original offense where the acquittal resulted from interference with or intimidation of a juror or witness. That's exactly what I thought in theory. So, I mean, we'll see.
It's Adam from StreamYard.
All right, we're on.
We have an exciting new feature to announce called Green Room, which is now available only on the business plan.
So they're back in the courtroom. All right. So it's not a presser. I mean, this is him addressing the judge. This is, and by him, I mean the prosecutor. So the story here is that a juror called prosecutors Thursday after the juror's decision was read in court, according to the court filing obtained by CNN. Juror X spoke to a support staff member and informed the support staff member that during deliberations, she received what she perceived to be a threat from a fellow juror while in the jury room. Holy shit. Okay, that's the filing says. The state did not call Juror X back and instead filed a notice to the court.
We're here this afternoon on the state's motion to interview Juror SF230. I've had the opportunity to review the state's motion as well as the defense response. Before we get into it, there is another matter that I need to place on the record. Yesterday, after the verdict was read and after I left the bench to go back to my office, the bailiffs advised me that there were two jurors that wanted to speak to me, Ms. Kunha and Mr. Binbao. I, of course, told them that that's not appropriate. I cannot speak to a juror. Then Mr. Binbao asked if there was a complaint form that he could fill out. And my answer was no. And I didn't think any more of it because I had no idea what he would be complaining about. I didn't foresee that it was something about the trial. I thought maybe he was upset about, I don't know, parking or having to wait so long. I wasn't really sure. So I found out later that actually Mr. Binbao was trying to get my attention either during or directly after the verdict was being read. And he was saying, I need to talk to the judge. I need to talk to the judge. And I was not informed of that. And I did not see him. The bailiffs did not want him to interrupt me. So I wasn't made aware of that. And they gave him a Post-it with a pen. And then they were excused. So that's the order that I received the information, even though the order in which it happened was he tried to get my attention while we were in court. I didn't see him, and he asked to speak to me, from what I understand, a couple of times. With that, I just wanted all of the parties to be aware of exactly what happened with Mr. Binbao. Now, as far as the state's motion is concerned, I don't think the statutory requirements have been met because I don't think the state has alleged that the verdict could be subject to legal challenge. However, if there was a crime that was potentially committed in the Broward County Courthouse in the jury room, I think that if the sheriff were to look into it, that would be entirely appropriate
Of
under
course.
the circumstances.
Of
Yes,
course.
Your Honor. May I address the court?
Sure.
Good afternoon. First of all, Your Honor, the reason the state filed the motion is that we are not seeking to set aside the verdict.
Okay.
This motion was filed for safety reasons.
Okay.
We do not have an
Smart.
ulterior motive, so I want to put everyone's
Very smart.
concerns aside. However, an allegation by a juror where they leave a message that they have received what they have perceived to be a threat from a fellow juror in the jury room cannot be ignored. This is a safety issue. I repeat, we are not trying
And we
to
don't even know the
set aside
circumstances of the
but
threat. Maybe they just got pissed off at each other and
cannot ignore
somebody called somebody a jackass or an asshole, and then they said, well, I'm going to kill you. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Probably had nothing to do with the decision.
That the support staff member who took the call said that the person who left the message was upset and then said that they seemed frightened. I did not put that in our pleading because I did not want to editorialize on the information, on the message that was conveyed. I tried to keep it factual. But if a crime was committed in the jury room, and we do not know that, and it may be nothing, but it may be something. There is no immunity for a crime that could have occurred in a jury room. The fact that it happened in a jury room does not confer immunity on what crime could have been committed back there. And it needs to be looked into. Now, the fact that they came to us, we would normally be able to, have an investigator talk to someone who makes a complaint to us. We could have, she's asked that we return phone call. We know we cannot do that. And that the only vehicle to bring this to the courts and the party's attention is to file this motion. And we have
Right.
asked
Go through the judge. That's all you can do.
An uninterested party, which would be law enforcement, to speak to the juror. Frankly, we don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
I understand.
Because we know that the defense will be jumping up and down and saying that we are trying to undermine verdict, which we are not trying to do. So the only reason we're doing this is that we cannot ignore a safety issue.
I agree. And certainly if there were people doing things that they were not supposed to be doing, we need to be made aware of it. Not that it's going to change the outcome, but certainly that shouldn't happen, and people shouldn't be hesitant to serve on juries in the future if they hear that jurors are not required to exhibit appropriate behavior during the deliberation.
And I would like to just put something else on the record to Your Honor, just to dispel any speculation, and this will all be made part of the conversation on headphones, that the juror who left the message is not the same juror who left you a note, which was made a part of the court file. It's a different juror.
And it's not Mr. Benbow. I mean, their names are public record, which is why I'm using them.
It is
now.
not Mr. Benbow.
Okay.
It is not.
I mean,
the
their
juror
names are
who
public
made,
record, people. It's probably still not exactly scrupulous to keep saying them, but
Okay. I mean, I don't really think there's anything else to discuss. The sheriff's office has jurisdiction. They've been made aware of the situation, and they can do or not do with this. I mean, I'm not going to order them to investigate it, but I think that certainly if that's a matter that
No,
they
you
feel
should
is
absolutely
appropriate for
order them
criminal
to investigate
that's
it.
what they should do.
Your Honor, will you give us permission, if you give us a phone message, permission to turn over the name to the court so that you can turn it over to law enforcement?
Absolutely.
You want to do that on headphones, or?
And just to play devil's advocate,
you give it directly?
she's not giving any first
Why don't you
names
give it
either.
directly?
Like, Florida's
I
a
know
big
that there
place. Broward
is-
County's a big place. There are probably many people with the same last names.
Sergeant, I
So,
called him
you
lieutenant
know-
the other day. He's so professional that I gave him a promotion. Sergeant Hendricks is here, and I'm sure he's our point person, that he'd be happy to receive the information and pass it along. You know, we call him Jason.
Okay,
All right. Thank you. We're in recess.
thank you, Your Honor.
All right, so yeah, that's right. The whole jury was doxxed like crazy yesterday. Yeah, this is so we don't know until an investigation takes place. We still don't know the circumstances of what the nature of this threat and what the purpose of the threat was. We don't know anything about it. What could have possibly happened? What could have possibly happened was that, like I said, I mean, it could have just simply been something such as, you know, they were arguing, you know, those situations I can imagine become very, very intense, very tense. Like that, the environment of a jury, and just the deliberation alone, much less like being stuck together for weeks on end, and an issue as provocative as a mass shooting, an issue as provocative as gun control, an issue as provocative as mental health awareness, an issue as provocative as the death penalty. I mean, these are all things that are going to take a toll on 12 people, 12 regular people, blue collar, white collar people mixed up together. And, you know, and yeah, emotions are gonna run high. So I can absolutely imagine, who knows what the nature of that threat was. It could have just been something, you know, well, what if I come to your house and shoot your whole family? You know, and probably just some loud hypothetical thing that probably wasn't really a threat, but can be considered a threat, and it needs to be taken seriously and addressed regardless. We don't know. So that would be the nature of the investigation that's going to take place. People are going to look into it. I mean, I don't really feel that comfortable that it's going to be, you know, that stud muffin chewing gum in a BSO uniform, like that the judge was making googly eyes at. I don't feel real confident that a thorough investigation is going to take place if that dude is leading it. I would hope that a detective would, seeing as this is probably the most high profile case in the country right now. I mean, what the hell? It's like this dude was just standing there, like he just handed out 10 parking tickets, and he's just like, I got you, Judge. I just don't feel real confident, you know? I just don't feel real confident. Yeah, no, Mona Lisa, I agree with you. It's absolutely fucked up that, I mean, they weren't really making googly eyes at each other. It was just kind of weird. But yeah, I agree with you that any juror intimidating another juror in any way, shape, or form, it needs to be looked into. It needs to be taken seriously, and it needs to be investigated, period. If it's reported, it needs to be looked into. And so I thought it was really smart of that prosecutor to say, listen, I want to be clear that this motion to investigate this is not a tactic to get the decision overturned. That is not what we're trying to do. Safety is the issue. Now, that looks good. Even if they're trying to get that decision overturned, in theory, I would think that that's a great way to approach that. To, like, right off the bat, like, you're not going to win the judge's favor by going, well, we expect a mistrial immediately over this. I don't think that they want a mistrial. I don't think that they want to put the families through all of this all over again. I just don't see any decent person wanting that. prosecutor, defense attorney. I just don't see that happening. Because that's all I can think about. I mean, we watched all of those accounts, all those public statements made by these family members of these victims, and they were very, very upset. They were very angry. They were very, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. I had just seen, let me take a look here. We're going to listen to some more of those people. Cause that really, really bothered me. Let's listen to, this is a father of one of the victims, speaking to Fox.
Father of Parkland victor Jamie Gutenberg. Fred Gutenberg joins me now. Fred, thank you for being here. I know it's a tough day, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Sure.
Talk to me about yesterday. What was it like being in court, hearing the jury's decision come down for life without parole instead of the death penalty?
You know, I said yesterday in the immediate aftermath that I've spent the past, almost 5 years now preparing myself physically and mentally for this day, for yesterday, to hear that verdict. And yet I expected to hear the death penalty. I just didn't see any way it could have been any other way. As much as I thought I was prepared, I wasn't. I found myself in shock and in disbelief, in anger, disgusted. Justice wasn't delivered, and the system again failed my family and 16 others.
Now, you say that you think this decision...
Now, real quick, let me address this comment. Kelly Green, that's a good question. I think that they tried at the beginning. I think you just joined us, but at the beginning, the judge mentioned that a juror asked to speak to her directly, and the judge declined because she felt it was absolutely inappropriate, which generally it is for a juror to directly address the judge. It's completely inappropriate. But considering the nature of why, because she was saying, well, usually what happens if a juror is trying to approach me, it's because they have a problem with parking or they have a problem with certain conditions and whatnot, comfort in some way, shape, or form. So I understand her just kind of being like, oh God, what do they want? I kind of get that, but it took a couple of attempts to actually, there was a written message on a Post-it, and then there was an actual phone message that from another juror stating what happened. So now they have to conduct an investigation. The right thing for this judge to do is to order an investigation, but I don't think that she officially ordered an investigation. I think that she just looked at that one BSO officer and was like, "You gonna look into it? Cool." So I don't know what's gonna happen here. Yeah, it wasn't even the one that was threatened, right? So let's hear some more from this father.
Will make it more likely that someone will try to do this again. Can you expand on that?
Listen, we learned in this trial how engaged my daughter's killer was in understanding other mass shootings and what happened. The next mass shooter is paying attention to this one. The next mass shooter now has a roadmap, not only to commit violence, but how to ensure they avoid final judgment. If ever there was a case for the death penalty, this one was it.
Agreed.
The aggravators were proved in court by the state attorneys. This person is evil. He will always be nothing but evil. He sits
Sorry, I was muted. If there ever was a case where I'm going to have to, agree. If there ever was a case where the death penalty was merited, this was it. This was obviously it. One of the biggest problems is it's not a question of do we agree with the death penalty or do we not agree with the death penalty. Like nobody in this chat or me should be even having that conversation. That's not what this is about. The fact is the death penalty already exists in Florida. This was a death penalty case. This was a trial to determine whether or not that person gets the death penalty. This was not a trial to determine guilt or innocence. This was a trial to determine whether or not Nicholas Cruz deserved the death penalty in a death penalty state. If there was enough evidence that proved that he was malicious in his actions and he should be executed if capital punishment applies. And the state proved this beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, they proved it to a point to where I couldn't take it anymore. There was so much evidence that looking at this kid's face was making me sick, and I had to stop covering it. And I just wanted to wait until the verdict because it got to a point where I was like, well, how? I mean, I understand, and I'm not criticizing the trial for going for as long as it did because you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That's how it works. And so you have to go over every piece of evidence that you have in order to convince a jury that this person deserves the death penalty in a capital punishment state. That's what this is about. Whether or not there should be a death penalty is not the conversation. That's already established. That state Florida has the death penalty, period. The question is, were his crimes heinous and malicious enough for him to actually get the death penalty? And the answer was clearly yes. The answer was clearly yes. So, in a sense, the system absolutely failed these families.
He sits in his prison cell now thinking about how he wished he could commit other murders. And so, yes, I fear people who have evil in their hearts.
Agreed, Grandma Jay.
Now don't fear judgment.
Agreed.
And Fred, you said it was proven in court, these aggravating factors. The jury said as much. Every aggravating factor that the prosecution argued, the jury found yes to. But you had these 3 jurors apparently that found the mitigating factors, things like his mental health issues, outweighed that in terms of whether or not he should get the death penalty. Did that help you at all to hear the jury confirm that at least even within this decision, that they did find that those aggravating factors, things like the heinous nature of this crime, were proven beyond a reasonable doubt?
No. In fact, the more I hear about what happened in the jury room, the more concerned I get. And it sounds like there's now some calls for an investigation. It appears one of the jurors may have had a mind made up long ago. And I sat through almost every day of that trial with those jurors. And if I wasn't there sitting, I was watching it later on. So I heard every word that they heard. And the defense did not prove its case, but it does sound as if one juror had a mind made up. 2 other jurors were movable and ultimately joined the one juror in that decision because all it takes is one person. It has to be unanimous. So I'm concerned about what happened in the jury room. I'm concerned that one juror wasn't actually moved by the mitigating circumstances. They already planned to vote no.
And I do know that one juror, I believe, wrote a letter to the judge saying that they did have an open mind the whole time, sort of refuting that was the case for them at least. But of course, this is something the attorneys are going to parse through. But Fred, I know you made an impact statement in court, a very emotional one. What was it like to face this suspect in court, and where do you go from here?
You know, being in the room with him was surreal, because I wish death on him. I do. He killed my daughter. I visit my daughter in a cemetery. The impact statements we delivered were not so much about him. They were about the impact on us. In fact, we are required by law to not talk really about him, to not even refer to him as the killer or the murderer, to not talk about what happened in the crime. We were not allowed to do any of that. We had to keep the focus on the impact on us. The good news is, on sentencing day,
I think they should have been allowed to say whatever they want.
To speak again. And we can, on that day, directly address him and tell him what we think of him. And I plan to do so.
All right,
Good
Fred
for you,
Gutenberg,
man.
we appreciate your time today. No parent should have to go through what you went through and are going through. We appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I mean, Yahya Kelly, I come from a Catholic family, so I understand. But again, as I said before, it does not, that's not the question here. If you're against the death penalty, you're an American and you have every right. I mean, I don't know if you're American or not. I'm assuming you are. But if me personally, I believe in everyone having their own individual beliefs. I support anyone having their own beliefs and expressing them accordingly. I fully support that. Even if I don't agree with your beliefs, I will absolutely defend your right to be able to speak up on those beliefs. However, that's not the issue here. And if you're against the death penalty, that's something you take up with your Congress. That's something you take up with your governor. But when it comes to this case, it's already established that this is a death penalty case. Okay, so someone like you, if they were doing jury selection and you are sitting there going, well, I'm Catholic and I don't believe in the death penalty, well, they would have eliminated you as a juror. Immediately they would have been like, nope, can't take her, sorry. So because that's not what this is about. The death penalty, whether or not you believe in the death penalty or not, is irrelevant to this case, because this trial was simply to determine, based on whether or not his actions were malicious in intent, and he was of sound mind to be able to carry out and premeditate, plan, and carry out and execute what he did. And the state proved this over and over and over and over again for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So yeah, Watcher, we're not getting into that. We're not getting into that. I respect your opinion, as I respect anybody who disagrees with you, their opinion as well. But we're not turning this into we're not turning this into a political debate. Everyone here in my chat, now I might express my own opinions from time to time, but whether or not I agree with your opinions is not the issue. One thing that I will say is everyone's opinions here are welcome. You might get shut down. I might get a little snappy, and I might even call you stupid. It happens. I've been known to do that. But you are welcome to have your opinions. If you're a human being and you have emotions and feelings and convictions and beliefs, and you have your right to those, no matter what they are. And I will always defend your right to have those and express them. BC, thank you. Mental illness seems to be the new excuse for all criminals, not just this case. It is an excuse for murder or any crime for that matter. Why do criminals have all the rights? Disgusting. Now, that's the thing, is criminals are American citizens as well. We do not live in a dictatorship. Criminals have rights. Everyone has rights. That's why, and I agree with you. Mental health seems to be the big excuse. That's always the case. People who don't want to take any accountability for their actions, they want to say that their mental health issues made them do it, or the medication that they're on because of their mental health issues made them do it, and blah 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 blah. We hear that shit all the time. But the thing we have is a system where due process will dictate whether or not that is a valid excuse. And so with the Letitia Stock trial, in the murder of her stepson, Gannon Stock, who was 11 years old at the time, she has been using the insanity plea over and over and over and over and over again. And I think the judge has been a lot more lenient than I would be, because the judge continues to entertain this. But I don't know enough about the law. I mean, maybe her attorneys have found ways to make it to where the judge has to give her the opportunity and the benefit of the doubt to actually give her another 2-week evaluation and then postpone the trial while this evaluation takes place. And she has dragged this on and on and on. Letitia Stock has manipulated the system in order to kill time and buy herself time for way too long. And so, I want to say 2 years already. I mean, with COVID being a thing, that's been used as an excuse, everything. But it's gotten to the point now where I think the judge is realizing that that there's only so much of this that the public and people are going to put up with. Well, stand your ground doesn't apply, Mike M. For 17 people. No, I mean, it applies if you're at home and 17 people bust into your house. Yeah, okay, that applies, sure. But I don't think that I mean, the system's always going to be flawed. I'm not going to say that the system is broken. I think in certain areas the system is broken, but it can be fixed. The system can be worked on. It can be tweaked and improved if you elect the right officials. But I have not seen a politician that I trust ever in my life. So the system's always going to be flawed. But we don't get to like cherry pick when, okay, well, the system is great because it worked in your favor, and then a decision didn't go your way, and then you go, oh, the system's broken. That's not necessarily the case. There's definitely flaws in the system, but there's always going to be loopholes. When people have basic human rights, there's always going to be loopholes. So we don't get to cherry pick when it's convenient for us to say when the system works and when the system doesn't. I don't think that this case is where the system is flawed. The advantage of people, the advantage of a system being run of the people, by the people, and for the people, was taken. There was an advantage taken there, where one juror was like, I'm going to play this system, and then I'm going to make things go my way. And that's just something that we're just going to have to live with unless you're ready to go to a dictatorship, which I'm never going to be ready to do. I don't think I would much prefer live in a system where it takes 12 people to decide, 12 of my peers to decide my fate, than one person in a position of power sitting on a bench deciding my fate. I would definitely much rather, hands down, live in a country or in a society where the law is that my peers deem my fate if I break the law. So, and that's, like I said, there's no way for that ever to be perfect. It's going to be flawed from time to time. It's going to be tweaked. That's what lawyers do. Lawyers find loopholes in the law. That's their job. When you're a criminal and you hire a really good lawyer and you pay that criminal lawyer, that criminal defense attorney, a shit ton of money, that's their job. If you're guilty of this crime and your lawyer who you pay a shitload of money to, you're paying them a shitload of money for them to sit you down and go, hey, check this out. I realize this, and this happened, and I know you did it, but we can beat it. We can get it thrown out, and I can get you home in 6 months. That's what you pay that lawyer for. You know, I mean, it sucks for the victims, but that's the system that we live in. That's the society that we live in. Otherwise, you know, we live in a very devolved state. Yeah, I mean, look at the Scott Peterson case. I mean, right there, it's a good example, because the Scott Peterson case, all these years later, first of all, I don't think that there was enough evidence to convict Scott Peterson. Do I think he's guilty? Do I think he did it? Yeah. Do I think that it could have been, could the decision have gone in his favor? And I would have been like, yeah, shit, you know, I think he's guilty. I'm glad he's in jail, but I feel like his lawyers probably could have gotten him off. You just simply couldn't convince 12 people that this dude was not guilty. You know what I mean? But yeah, the system is flawed. Innocent people get thrown in jail all the time. Innocent people get locked up. A lot of people don't agree with me. I do not believe that Michael Long belongs in jail right now. I believe that some accountability should have been made for him when it came to his actions regarding Sophie, and taking her across the border. I mean, I was very vocal against that from the beginning, even before. I told him directly while he was on my channel. I told him directly that I did not agree with that, and I would not back him up on that. But do I think that he belonged in a Mexican jail for as long as he was, and then transported and doing time in this jail in Texas, and then on top of that, adding more charges to him while he's in jail? No. I think that they're just trying to bury him under the jail right now. And I think it's completely unfair. Regardless of what your opinions are of him, I mean, it's clear that he's clearly being railroaded. But as far as Scott Peterson goes, then, you know, there was certain things going on with the jury, supposedly later on. They failed to prove it. His appeals thrown out. So Scott Peterson is still in prison. And for those that believe that he is guilty, justice has been served. But again, flawed system. You have, and what I mean by flawed, here's another example. You have the Casey Anthony case. Casey Anthony, prosecution just simply failed to make their case airtight. They failed to do it. They should have, it turned out later that there was a Foxfire search engine search that was made by Casey. It was proven that it couldn't have been her father because he was already en route to work between how long it takes him to get to work and when he was clocked in and when the search was made. And I believe that would have absolutely sealed Casey Anthony's fate had they searched her computer thoroughly and found this. But right. I mean, you have Jose Baez, is that his name? She had Jose Baez as an attorney. Dude's a great defense attorney, total shitbag, but a great defense attorney. And then you had a prosecution that was just not better than him. Flawed system. It is what it is. Sometimes you don't get good prosecutors, you know? And Cindy lied on the stand too. Cindy flip-flopped back and forth. And so that's, yeah. Yes, Drunk Lauren. Yes, exactly. It was foolproof suffocation. Like, how do I make sure somebody suffocates? How do I make sure somebody suffocates? Like, basically thorough suffocating for dummies is basically what she Googled. And they failed to find that. And some people, yes, believe that that's the concern. Because some of those parents that I was listening to yesterday, some of them don't necessarily wish death on this guy. They're disappointed with how a jury could possibly not unanimously decide that this person should be sentenced to death in a capital punishment state. When, if any case merits capital punishment, it's this one. So some of those parents are just like, well, the system failed, you know? I mean, even Governor DeSantis spoke publicly and said that the system failed and that he's very disappointed in that jury. So and yes, the prosecutors did say that they were not looking to overturn the verdict. And even if they are, it was smart of them to say that that's not their motive. Like they might be able to, once the investigation is complete, I can see them going, Your Honor, I mean, it would be foolish of us to not, depending on the circumstances of what these threats were. I mean, I can't see, you know, if it turns out that somebody was threatened and intimidated to vote no, I don't see how a competent prosecutor, I mean, wouldn't that be misconduct? Wouldn't, you know, just not doing their job? Can't they be disbarred for not filing for a mistrial or motioning for a mistrial if there's proof that a juror was actually intimidated and tampered with? Thank you, Cherry. Cherry has a job. She has to work. So I appreciate you being here and helping out as always. So, I mean, yeah, so right now, before an investigation takes place, it would be overzealous of the prosecution to be like, well, we demand a mistrial. We want this overturned. And they're playing to that judge's personality, in my opinion. I feel like that's what they're doing, because I don't think that judge likes to be told what to do. I don't think that judge likes to feel like she's being influenced by anyone else. She likes to stand her ground and say, I'm saying this and my way goes. And if you don't like it, too fucking bad. That's the kind of attitude that judge comes off as to me. So if I was the prosecution, I would totally just absolutely play chess with how I'm going to get that judge to overturn that conviction. If I was trying to overturn that conviction, I would definitely not demand it, because it's not going to go well for them. I feel like she would just out of principle just be like, well, you're not going to tell me what to do. Right. Robbie Wartburg, you're right. Like I said, we just don't know the circumstances of the threat. We don't know if it was over a cup of coffee, over the last cup of coffee, and somebody threatened them. You know what I mean? We just don't know what happened. So it might not have had anything to do with the decision. And I don't know if they'll put Cruz in Gen Pop, Michelle Macklin. I don't know if they will. But there you have it, guys. It's messy. Parents are not happy. Families are not happy with the decision, and there will be some looking into as far as what went on in that jury room. So, if I hear anything, as soon as I hear something, I'll go over it again. But I'm going to go ahead and call it tonight, guys. For those of you who tuned into the Hannibal and Monty show, the Hannibal and Monty shit show on Wednesday, thank you for doing that. I'm going to be on that channel again. And it's going to be called An Hour of Lulz. And this is going to be me, Monty, and Burnt Toast on that panel. And I think that's going to be tonight at 9. Let me drop the link in here. So, I'm going to drop the link to that channel. And please, as you leave here, go on ahead and subscribe to them. This is going to be just for fun. We won't be talking about crime cases or anything of that nature. We're just going to be having fun. And you guys know, I always have fun talking to Toast, and Monty and Hannibal are new friends of mine. And the stream that we did Wednesday together was so fun, so much fun. I can't remember the last time I had so much fun on YouTube. So for those of you who like Burnt Toast, it'll be me and her and Monty tonight on that channel. And so I think it's going to be like 9 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see you guys there. So go ahead and click on this on your way out and subscribe to that channel. I'd really appreciate it. And I love you guys very, very much. Thanks for joining me. We will do this again very soon, my friends.